All righty. So we do have quorum. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the MTS Public Security Committee meeting. It is 10 o'clock, and I will now call the meeting to order. Hasael, please call the roll.
Members, please make your selections on the tablets.
Okay.
Chair, we have a quorum for 4 members present and 3 members absent.
Okay, thank you so much. We have our public comments that are first. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda today. Do we have any public commenters at this time?
We do not.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's move on to the approval of the minutes. We're being asked to approve the minutes from the September 20th, 2024 Public Security Committee meetings. Any comments for the public on this? No?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, unless there are any changes, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Member Hall and a second from Member Dillard. Let's see, are we going to let's go to the voting machine at this time.
Members, please make your selections on the tablets. Motion passes with 4 members present,
Okay.
voting yes, and 3 members absent.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Moving right along, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows I'm going to be going a little fast today because I do have a hard stop at noon, and I want to get in as much as we possibly can. If we have to continue an item, that's fine. I don't want you all to feel like you can't talk, but I just want to make sure you know. Okay, so item number 4, this is Transit Security and Passenger Safety Department Overview. Dan Brislin will be presenting with us along with Tim. So please proceed as you'd like. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning. I'll like to introduce Dan Brislin. He's our Deputy Director of Transit Security and Passenger Safety. My name is Tim Kern. I'm the Director. And before Dan does the presentation, I just wanted to introduce my staff in the back here, our management team in the Transit Security Department. Sean Donaldson's our Field Operations Manager. I have Josh Ortiz in the back. He's our data analyst. He'll present here in a few minutes. Herb Taft is our Professional Standards Manager. And Gary Avalos right here is our investigator. So I just wanted to let everybody know who they are in the room. Thank you. And Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for those introductions. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is going to be what an opportunity for us to be able to present to you not only the opportunities, but the challenges. And we'll find as we go through this presentation that 2024 was a far from typical year. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And with that comes a lot of opportunities and a lot of training opportunities as well for our folks. I'll go ahead and get started. The foundation of our organization lies here. I mean, we really live by this. We teach this during the academy. We teach this on a regular basis to our folks, our core values of trust, honesty, integrity, loyalty, respect, and diversity. And we expect all of our folks to adhere to that because our mission is public service. Our mission is public safety, and to make sure that we gain the public trust, and that comes through all avenues of productivity and behavior. So right now, we currently have 83 inspectors. So what's unusual about that? I was hired here in 2020, at the end of 2023, where we were hovering around 60. So you're looking at about 20 plus more CCIs, and we're endeavoring to have 10 more in the middle of March when we're starting a new academy. 836.5, a lot of people say, oh, powers of arrest, what does that mean? Well, our folks are unarmed. We do not have the force options of a peace officer, nor do we have the authority of a peace officer. We do not have a taser, a firearm, a gun. However, they do have the authority of arrest. And what does that mean? Essentially what a public officer is, when authorized by ordinance, which is Ordinance 5, which is deemed by the board, our public officers can make an arrest for a misdemeanor or an ordinance that they reasonably believe to have occurred in their presence. And arrest can mean many things. Arrest can mean that we're handing off an arrest to local law enforcement, or we're essentially making an arrest which you would consider similar to a traffic citation with a written promise to appear in court absent them wanting to be brought in front of a magistrate. So I would equate it to as low level as a traffic citation to as high level as passing it off to law enforcement to deal with some of these crimes that we encounter. So we have 83. We currently have 21 supervisors. We've also hired 4 supervisors, and during that time, I'll talk about a little bit of the developmental issues that we've seen over doing such a massive hiring increase, but we're making sure our supervisors are out there holding to our core values, what I talked about, as well as the standards that the public expects of us, the board expects of us, and our organization expects of them. So we also have contract employees, which is our intercon. They fall under 837. So you see the folks in blue, they're the ones going blue, and half of them are armed and half of them are unarmed. They fall under 837 of the penal code, which is a private citizen, just the same as you and me. They are private citizens, and with that, they do not have the ability to detain for investigative purposes. They're there for highly visible uniform presence. And they can make an arrest for felonies or misdemeanors committed in their presence, but it's just the same as what a private citizen can do in that capacity. So they do not, like I said before, they do not have any peace officer power or arrest powers that fall under the penal code or the Fourth Amendment. So I'll talk a little bit about what training we've had because of our massive hiring increase, but these are the priorities. Now that we're starting to have people in the field, what are we doubling down on? What are we tripling down on? And what we find important for our folks to know? We currently do de-escalation training in our academy. We currently do de-escalation training from an outside expert who is a subject matter expert psychologist. To triple down on that, we've recently had 2 of our in-service folks trained as a de-escalation instructor. And why do we do that? Why do we pay so much attention to that? Well, our folks deal with conflict on a daily basis, and we want to provide them with the ongoing training so they understand human behavior. They understand how to peacefully gain compliance, how to educate patrons, and how to avoid conflict. That is our goal. Our goal, again, is public service. Again, our folks are not armed, so we need to provide them the tools for lower probability of conflict and make sure we're just educating the public. A lot of times we find that people do not, we're seeing a trend is that some people do not recognize our folks as having any authority at all to be able to detain them, and they'll consider them the same as a security guard who does not have that ability. Well, that's not their responsibility to know. That's our responsibility to make sure we educate them politely and courteously as to what that classification of a public officer is, because it's unique. It's unique. People know that they're not a police officer, and they're assuming that they're a security officer. So it's making them very clear as to what authority they have. And they certainly can't tout that they're a peace officer. And they do have authority that is unusual, which is different than a security guard. So it's our responsibility. We've charged all of our CCIs to be able to verbally articulate that, to be able to, when the opportunity exists, to calmly educate the public, provide time for compliance, that they know that, look, we're here to help, and we can get along our way. It's simple as that. So education for our folks is key. It's our responsibility to educate the public. We talk a little bit about defensive tactics. Why would we have 2 defensive tactics instructors? We cover defensive tactics in our academy, as well as contract subject matter experts to train our folks. Why would it be important to have defensive tactics instructors in-house? It's because not only do we want people to understand defensive tactics techniques, we want them to understand the implications of using force, the Fourth Amendment issues with use, how big of a deal it is, and more importantly, when not to use force. We can do this by having ongoing training with our folks because we've had such a massive growth, and that comes through constant in-service training development, and that's what we're creating a foundation for with this massive growth. We talk about the next thing. What is our organizational leadership? What do we find important as well? We're increasing our training on bias, policing, and anti-discrimination, because that is not something we ever want. That is something we condemn, and that is something that we want to make sure our people understand, not only overt or deliberate bias, but also they understand what unconscious bias means and implicit bias means as well, so they will not run into those issues. We provide that training in the academy. We provide that training through a contract psychologist, and currently we're doing peace officer standards and training so they understand that as well. So we are tripling down on that because that's so important. We are creating a formal training series on mental illness. We encounter we encounter mental illness or people who are suffering from mental illness on a regular basis, or who may be experiencing a disability, whether that's physical, developmental. We want our folks to be able to understand the behavioral cues, how to communicate. What is depression? What is bipolar affective disorder? What is schizophrenia? Again, we turn into things like developmental disability. What about autism spectrum? What about cerebral palsy, epilepsy? What about people with physical disabilities that may impact their ability to understand? Hearing disabilities, vision, all of these things we want to be able to, so when they know that these indicators present themselves, they can redirect. We redirect into an outreach. We go from enforcement to outreach. So we will not only, again, we do this training in-house with our contract, but we're going to continue to do it more and more and more, because that's what they encounter. And that, again, that's what is expected of us. And that's what we want to make sure we're serving the community of the mentally ill, of folks with disabilities, and providing all those tools available to them. On to the next is critical incident management for supervisors. Why is this important? Well, we found this out with the massive floods that we had at the end of 2024. The beginning of 2024. We have a critical incident. We made sure our supervisors are trained on the incident command system, which is what fire department, which is what police use on a regular basis, which creates a formalized structure of finance, logistics, operations, and planning. And there's an incident command. And we will never take a command role. We're just not in that. We don't have that ability to do that, nor would we ever. But we want our folks to understand that they would take either a unified command, which is unlikely, but more of a liaison. So they understand that structure. They know what law enforcement is doing. They know what fire department's doing during these major critical incidents. We also added a second training coordinator. Training cannot be an afterthought, especially when we have so many new employees in the field. This training coordinator will be charged with doing ongoing, regular training on procedural issues to make sure our folks are doing right. We've had a lot of new technologies that have been presented here. Our 2025 goals, again, in the same line as wanting to have more in-house training. So we're doing it on a far more regular basis. Try to certify our in-house on first aid and CPR, because we encounter people with medical emergencies on a regular basis. What our analyst is going to talk a little bit about is some of the issues with deploying Narcan. So we're out there encountering people in medical crisis. We want to make sure that we do regular ongoing training. Pepper spray. Pepper spray is the only force option that our CCIs carry. But we also want them to understand not only how to use it, but also what the implications are, and that it's deemed an intermediate force option, similar to a taser, similar to an impact weapon. So we need to know, make it unequivocally clear when they can use it and when they can't, and that it adheres to the policies. A policy is one thing, but understand the roots and the fundamentals of it is really important. So those are our aspirations moving into 2025, and we'll continue to build it. We're going to continue to conduct post-peace officer standard appropriate learning domains. And really, we're not opposed to organization, but we want to align, and some of the subjects that really we can cover in those are really applicable to what we do. Things like cultural competency, cultural humility, things like report writing, things like community engagement, all of these things that we can glean from that standardized training. Have some technical. Oh, there we go. Okay, moving on. So this is a good thing to talk about. You know, the board approved that we have this. So again, I told you when I got here in 20, we had 60 plus. Now the board approved this massive expansion. 34 code compliance inspectors, 6 code compliance supervisors, 5 code compliance dispatchers. So what does that mean? Well, during this time, we've had probably the most massive recruiting, hiring, and training effort this organization has ever seen. During 2024, we conducted 6 academies. And during that time, they're learning a wide range of different skills, and I'll talk a little bit about them. They're tasked with learning our MTS ordinances, their authority, the pronto fare structure and how that works, LRV and bus safety, report writing, evidence procedures, system geography, radio communications, introduction to criminal justice, human trafficking prevention, sexual harassment and discrimination, de-escalation, tactical communication and implicit bias, cultural diversity and discrimination, use of force, chemical agents, which is our pepper spray, contact and cover, Narcan training, people with disabilities, mental illness and developmental disabilities. These are examples of all the things they learn in the academy. So suddenly we put them out in the field and we take this large academy and we pair them up individually with a training officer for another 4 weeks where they aren't immediately ready to go. They have to actually learn the foundation of the job, and some of those anchors that they have to adhere to, and the anchors that we have to make sure that they're competent in is community engagement, procedural issues, relationships with other people, self-initiated activity, ethics, integrity, crimes in progress, control of conflict, report writing, radio communications. So these are all anchors that our training officers who are our highest performers have to slow down and make sure that our folks meet these anchors. Some folks did. Some of our trainees made it and some of them did not, because we hold them to a very high standard, because it's a big deal when you put people out in the field who have the authority that they do. So we had a lot of people who are successful and a lot of them are not. And again, we have another academy with 10 coming up at the middle of the month, and we're excited to see where that goes as well. So we talked about the recruitment and retention challenge. We've lost quite a few out of that retention. We hired 53 and we lost 18 for various reasons. We've also lost 11 to just our in-service folks who've gone on to better things. And we make sure that we celebrate our folks' achievements and their aspirations, and they've gone on to other bigger and better things. We've just recently lost 2 to the Sheriff's Department. We've lost 1 to National City before that. We lost a few to go into different agencies in different states, or some that just simply want to go on to something completely different because it's just not quite the job for them. And again, we embrace that. We want to make sure our employees feel supported. So we do have some new opportunities. Again, opened up Suite 120, which is right downstairs here. Provides a permanent place for supervisors, one of the most active stations, permanent place for our CCIs, San Ysidro, El Cajon, and Palomar. Again, a place where our folks could be. It creates permanency on the system where they can stay. One of the most exciting things we have going on right now is our Lemon Grove Depot, which we had just officially staffed as of yesterday. We have 8 CCIs and 2 supervisors who are there, who are going to be able to be housed and permanently serve the East County as well. And right now they're just learning it, but I tell you what, an opportunity. And the city of Lemon Grove has been very accommodating, and we're truly appreciative of them providing us that space. Okay, so we talk about some of the expansion. So we have these new employees. So where do we distribute it? We've actually doubled our bus enforcement team. And as you can see by the stats, the contacts have gone up quite a bit. Our central control calls, our dispatch calls, again, all gone up. We talk about homeless outreach. All reason that looks like it's gone down, but it actually I have a reason for that, and that's because of the shift in which we've gone in our homeless outreach efforts, which are pretty exciting, and again, very much developmental. We're learning along the way. We really feel it's important because we do have folks, you know, our bus operators have a very difficult job, and it's important that we reach out to them so that they know our presence is there. They know that we're there to support them as well. We have 2 morning shifts and 2 night shifts teams, which is very exciting. Now it's something that's recently implemented to make sure that, you know, our entire system is being covered. I mean, this one right here, our new Route 910, which is really intended to provide service to our service workers in the middle of the night. From Santa Fe Depot all the way down to San Ysidro, we have folks who are essentially dedicated that line to make sure that they're safe. That's a brand new effort for us, and we're pretty excited about that. Okay, so homeless outreach, I talked a little bit about that. Unsheltered population. So as of 3 years ago, we really didn't have any interaction with the homeless at all. It was just something that, you know, we just assumed other people were handling. But you know what a better opportunity than to engage with the unsheltered population in what could be their only form of transportation, or their ability to get to services, their ability to get to a place where they can get the service they need to, versus having to no ability to, you know, walk 4 miles or walk to the other part of the city in order to get those services. So this is what we look like 2021 to 2023. And it wasn't a failure, and we're still very much developing. You can see we encountered 2,888 people encountered and 445 accepted shelter, which is a big deal. So in 2024, we added another CCI. This is Vincent and Cynthia, and they are completely dedicated to their profession. They're unique. It takes a special person to be able to do this job. It takes a person who's approachable. It takes a person who has empathy and compassion, and these two absolutely embrace that. We've partnered with over 30 organizations, meaning we reached out to organizations and we've asked them, what can we do to assist you to provide resources for our unsheltered population? We used to just cover downtown San Diego. Now we cover the entire MTS system. We changed our uniform to be more approachable. A lot of times if we're wearing our CCI uniforms, people are taken aback a little bit and they become a little bit more apprehensive to talk to us. Our uniform makes it clear that it's MTS. We're here to help. It says outreach on it. And then our folks on the systems are very much know who they are. Talk about contacts. We provide resources like DMV ID vouchers, food, other things. We contacted 10,764 people versus 2,800. 5,830 accepted resources. So we talk about accepted resources. And you know, in my experience, in my previous profession with working with outreach task forces, it takes a lot to get people to engage and accept help. It could take 1 visit, 2 visits, 5 visits. What we would measure on our system is not that they're out of the issues that they're in, but that they're accepting information. They're accepting resources and they're accepting communication. Are they accepting a warm handoff based on the needs that they have? Because we know that homelessness is not a one-stop shop. Not everybody who's finding themselves in a position of homelessness is having the same problem. So it can't be fixed the same way. So we have to be able to point them in the right direction as to what resources are available. Do they suffer from mental illness? Do they suffer from drug addiction? Are they simply down on their luck and don't have a place to stay? Are there other outside factors where we can help them reunify with family members? We have to be able to identify them and point them in the right direction. Do I think we're experts at it right now? Absolutely not. We are learning as we go, and we are learning from the outreach organizations that we just started to reach out to get better at that. We've recently done major outreach events. One was in Chula Vista, at the Palomar Station, where the district attorney's office provided outreach in the form of showers and haircuts and other outreach services, as well as adjudicating misdemeanor warrants. And we will let all of our people know that on the system that these events are happening. We had another one in Old Town, Veterans Affairs put on, providing medical services, vaccines, medical care, as well as other outreach services, including homelessness, HIV, all of these things we want to make sure. And what a better place to have those events. We're trying to create at least some measure of permanency so that our population of the unsheltered know that we're here to help. We don't want it to be so that it's a enforcement only, because we know that's not the way we solve the problem. That's where we are moving forward, and we're still learning. We currently transport individuals, needed shelters. We're learning, and we're going to get better as next year goes on. Encampment details, we have property where we have major encampments. So we have a CCI and a TSO who work with different organizations, and we address legal lodging, environmental concerns and impact. Sometimes we have to do camp cleanups. We'll contact folks for violation or outreach services as well. As you can see, cleaned up over 92,000 pounds of trash and hard debris that has been removed. So that is a constant effort that we do as well. Our canine program is pretty exciting. It's a regional asset, and we take great pride in that. It's certified by the TSA. They do regular sweeps of region-wide suspicious item packages and vehicles and bomb threats. They conduct pre-sweeps of the stations and areas of stadiums, schools, press conferences, because they're a regional asset. These dogs are so impressive, and the handlers are so impressive. I could not tell you. I mean, the things that they do is amazing, as well as the bond that these folks have with their dogs. As you can see, all of our canine handlers are threat assessment officers or threat liaison officers. So they know, they're trained to see what is not normal, what is atypical, what do we need to report. As I said, we're a regional asset. Major event like Comic-Con event, we brought in canine handlers, which are all bomb detection dogs or explosive detection dogs, no narcotics, no apprehension dogs. These are all explosion detection. And we had brought in from all over the state to assist us with Comic-Con. Again, and on the other end, we are asked to come out and help at other events. Here's Aska. She is a wonderful dog. This is her at our most recent Super Bowl. And our Super Bowl before that, this is Aska and Apex, as well as their handler, Sergeant Bautista and Inspector Glassland. And they just absolutely love their dogs. And we may be losing one of ours to another agency very soon, but he was just informed that he's going to be able to keep his dog because the dog is about to retire. And he was actually really worried about that because he has such a bond with his older dog. Okay, so code compliance investigator. This is a new position that we created in 2024. Again, some of the efforts that a new position. And why did we do that? Well, we were finding that law enforcement is so taxed right now with the ability to respond to calls and the ability to handle some of the lower level offenses or some of the things where someone doesn't initially want prosecution. So we hired a criminal investigator. He is a 26-year veteran of the San Diego Police Department. He's worked in homicide and narcotics. He is very clear in the investigative process. He is acting as our liaison to law enforcement. And that is something that was brought up in the APTA review. And submitting cases. So basically this was prompted by an increase in lewd acts, an increase in indecent exposures. And we want to make sure that we are not only addressing this issue, we are addressing the victims of this, because this is a big deal. This is a predatory behavior. This is behavior where we have victims who can be traumatized for the rest of their life simply by observing that. We wanted to be part of the solution, and we created this position, and he has done an outstanding job in creating a process and working with the city attorney to submit cases to the city attorney for prosecution of these cases. And we want to thank you for recently approving by the board that we can also enforce 314, which is indecent exposure, which is not something we had before. So this is a very exciting opportunity, again, developmental, but most recently we've been told that cases are moving forward, and we are providing a very good handoff to law enforcement. It's an appropriate investigation for law enforcement to follow up on. We're providing support and guidance for crime victims on what to do next. It really is helpful, and we want to continue again to develop this. Gary, you want to stand up?
Yeah.
This is Gary, our investigators. We're very excited to have. Okay, so this is a new direction that we've taken. This was, again, based on the APTA review, is that the panel suggested MTS consider enhancing transit security and passenger safety's ability to collect crime-related and incident data on all modes of transportation and on all MTS property. Prior to this, we would just have a general understanding as to where crime is occurring, which means it was a far less directed effort, and we're moving up and down the system. We could be doing fare inspections in a certain area, but now with the crime analyst, we have a far more clear, data-driven, objective lens as to where our crime issues are occurring. Where are our assaults occurring? Where are our lewd acts occurring? Is there narcotics use and sales? Is there vandalism occurring here? Is this an area where copper theft seems to be a trend? And you see copper theft is a major risk to public safety. It can derail a train. And these are things that we really want to pay attention to. So we're developing strategies. We have monthly meetings to discuss crime trends. That's all data driven. And it's actually things that we're learning, and it's an exciting opportunity. And we're going to continue to develop this process. Our supervisors are charged with developing strategies based on crime data to address issues on the system. And that can be in the form of some of the specialized units that we have, but also just our regular folks who are on the line. So what is a ridership experience detail? And this is something that we would apply to a strategy based on that data-driven information. It's within a specific time frame, usually commuter or rush hour. It's CCI. We have CCI trained teams, usually 3 to 5 teams, 6 to 10 CCIs. They ride the train up and down the system, 3 to 4 stations in a specific area to conduct fare checks on board for quality of life violations, including smoking, drinking, loud music, or in response to our data-driven information, which could be assaults, which could be lewd acts, which could be narcotics use. These are all things that now we can just be a lot more focused on versus it being a lot less random. Again, when we talk about enforcement, it's not just an enforcement. It's not just enforcement. It's education, our Ride Assured, our Pronto Fare system, our Youth Opportunity Pass, which is a big effort that we're doing in the schools and with the students to let them know what they need to do to get that Youth Opportunity Pass. Okay, and that during 2024, we had 52 details, contacted almost 25,000. Total warnings of 570. So you see it was kind of equitable. We provided warnings, fare citations 474, other violations 70. Pronto validations allowing them to tap during 2024, patron assist, law enforcement arrests, and that evasion rate was 32.36. Now, we can't equate that, and I'll talk a little bit about what a special enforcement detail is. These are small periods of time with a smaller amount of CCIs. To get the unequivocally clear 100% fare rate is a challenge in these cities because a lot of times they're stopped by certain incidents, but we do ask that they gather a clear evasion rate when they do these details. Special enforcement detail, and I think probably a lot of you have seen it, and the folks that have been on the board before see the reports as to what they've looked like and what they result in. So they're made for a select station. We go throughout the county. We've had them in Santee. We've had them all the way up to UCSD and in between. They're within a specific time frame, usually commuter and rush hour, 100% fare checks to all patrons. They provide us fare evasion data. All patrons without fares are removed from the train, and outreach services are provided to those experienced homeless. So we have our homeless outreach team on scene. And during that time, I think we had, during a 2024, 391 during those events accepted services. These events seems a lot of CCIs, but why would you need so many CCIs? Well, it's really an effort to be less intrusive. We are on there to do 100% fare check, and we are out in 90 seconds to not delay the train, to not delay people's commutes. People need to get to work. They shouldn't have us stopping them if they're paying their fares and everything's moving on. So again, passengers contacted, about 24,000. Total warnings, you'll see the fare citations, other violations, patron assist, pronto validations, law enforcement arrests, and the evasion rate. So we saw an evasion rate when we first started as SEDs, again, the end of 2023, we were receiving evasion rates of upwards, I think the high was 40. And yeah, so we saw, and it was hovering around 30%, okay? And that continued into 2024. As we continue to do things, we started to see a trend right at the end of 2024, we started to see our evasion rate drop to the point where our last three were 8%, 8%. We're going into 2025, 12%, and most recent 9%. And I can't say that that's a reliable data. That's a sample, but it's trending in a direction that we probably would want to see. And there could be a myriad of reasons why we do that, or more of our presence, us handling issues in crime, in very crime specific areas, or just education to the public. And I think our marketing team has done a great job at just informing the public as to what's down the pipe. We've seen a lot of change. Our passenger safety, now we've doubled up. We talk about distributing. We have all these new CCIs. We want to make sure we distribute our resources to the best to serve our patrons. And this is, we have now doubled up our passenger safety teams. They're designed to further enhance the safety and the pleasant riding experience for our riders. They address quality of life violations, acute and chronic crime issues on the system. They can work in a plainclothes capacity, high visibility controlled. It's very much data driven. And it's also to address patron concerns. We have a lot of people we have a good mechanism in which people can voice their concerns. We certainly don't want it to fall on deaf ears. We want to make sure that if they have concerns, we are out there and we are addressing it. And they know that if they made something, they know they see us out there. Our presence is absolutely our biggest tool. Our presence. When people see us out there, they feel safe. We bring calm. We bring safety. People can take a breath and they feel like, okay, I'm safe, and we're in a good place. Okay, so the passenger say March through December. And the reason I put March through December is because we actually doubled up our passenger safety team. 203 passengers contacted, multiple train rides, fare citations, 545 quality of life violations, 226 law enforcement arrests, 270 outreach services offered. Okay, let's talk about law enforcement. So during the APTA review, it was suggested that we have some sort of permanency in law enforcement presence, and that would be maybe to convert our agency into a post organization. And right now that's not operationally feasible. So we rely heavily on law enforcement to assist us, because we're going to have our analysts come up and they'll talk about some of the categories of crimes that we may encounter on the system that CCIs and transit security officers cannot safely handle, do not have the authority to handle, can do no further investigation. So we rely on our law enforcement partners, and that can include assault with a deadly weapon, can include robbery, can include drug offenses. We do not have the authority to deal with those. So our partnerships with law enforcement are key. We go through multiple jurisdictions, and we have great relationships with the San Diego Police Department, who are very much doing everything they can to keep our communities safe. San Diego Sheriff's Department, and that would include Lemon Grove and Santee. Our local SDSU police, La Mesa Police, El Cajon, National City, Chula Vista. So our folks go all the way through that system, and we have to be able to communicate with all of our law enforcement partners when things go bad, and they've done a great job in assisting us. And it all comes down to us having those positive relationships and making sure that, you know what, we're all doing the right thing, and we're keeping our patrons safe, and we're providing that artery of transportation through multiple cities and want to keep it safe. Our communications center, I want to celebrate them. We've also increased our communications center staff. We put them through our academy, this just like CCI's, and they have had a massive increase in calls for service. And there could be multiple reasons. We may have more crime in the system, but also we provide an easier way for people to report crime. We've also created an avenue of our 5-9 text report, which is an easier way for them to just text. And you can see at the bottom our 5-9 reports. 2024, 13,464 versus 3,277 from 2023. They're getting these calls. We're responding to calls. And you talk about a job that is difficult and multitasking and dealing with, as you can see, medical aids, welfare checks, and you're having people's lives in your hands, and be able to dispatch our folks, but also dispatch emergency first responders, ambulance, fire, police, and articulating it and bringing it out quickly. So our patrons are being responded to quickly in medical crisis or during active crimes or during a fire or things like that. At the beginning of this endeavor, we put some of our CCIs through the Peace Officer Standards and Training Dispatcher Certification course to make sure that they understand how the system works. And we also want to make sure that they understand that their job is hard, and we absolutely support them, and we will continue to grow and improve in this as well. Okay, you see some of the reasons for the managing these operations and coordinating and the increase in calls. Post-COVID, and increased ridership, more CCIs in the field, and the 5-line implementation is the reason why some of these things are increasing. So I want to preface this with, this is a very small sample. So this is just to see where we are since February 1st, since we started the new diversion process. Again, very small sample. To give you a look at our online payment square is 17 online payments received. Phone payments, we've had 2 phone payments received. One-time waiver, we've had 64 one-time waivers processed, and we looked into it. I think we've had some that are pending that we're still processing. So as of January, you'll just give you a little snapshot of citations issued. January 1st through 20, we had 1,619 total citations issued. 383 were fare related. And as of February 1st through 20, we had 1,955 total citations issues. 1,663 citations are fare related. Now, obviously, we make it unequivocally clear to our folks that citation is not the go-to. Okay, we do fare inspections, but if that's the result, but it is not the go-to, and we give them discretion in that regard. But this is the result of just the change a little bit. And revenue impact, and I can't expound upon this much, but as far as what our finance folks have seen for the month of February, which is obviously a small sample, MTS average 21,000 for, let's see, yeah, 21.5 thousand more revenue per day over the previous month, for a total increase of $588,000 over the previous month. Again, we can't say that it's something where this is where we are, but what I can say to you is what we're seeing is trending in the right direction. What we're telling you as an organization, we've had massive growth, and we will continue to get better, and we will continue to do things in a way that is serving our public, because we know that we are public servants, and we're excited we're excited about seeing what 2025 will bring. Do we have any questions or comments?
Thank you so much. I'll just turn over to our clerk to see if there are any public comments before we go to committee members.
We do not.
Okay, any committee members? Member Dillard.
Good morning.
Hi.
And thank you for that comprehensive presentation. I appreciate all the detail, and it really sounds like you're really intensely involved and passionate about the job that you do. And, you know, I, for one, really appreciate it. But there's a lot of details that you gave, and a lot of different ways that that I'll let my other colleagues talk about. But I have a specific passion that I want to share with you. If you go back to page 4, I'm just going to talk about when it comes to bias. I'm glad that you have a training program. I think that's really important. But I wanna share with you what I want to make sure that you understand about the bias training. Where do I start? Minorities experience a different bias, if you will. I can give you 1,000 incidents myself personally. I'm sure some of my colleagues could also give stories. But I'll give you one general bias, and I'll explain why I'm giving my point. I used to have a bias against people who shook my hand in a wimpy fashion, if you will, and not in a firm fashion. And I really didn't realize that I had that bias, but I'm a military brat. And that's the way my father taught me. You know, if you're going to shake somebody's hand, make sure you shake it where they recognize that you're standing in front of them saying hello or whatever it is. And I learned later that different cultures may not have that same opinion about how to shake one's hand. I learned that sometimes men don't shake women's hands firmly because they're afraid that they might hurt them, you know. And then there's other people that are culturally different and don't even shake hands. They do, you know, other ways of, you know, admitting that you're standing in front of them and acknowledging them. I say that to say that sometimes when people have been experiencing racism and bias, it's been like 1,000 cuts before. And then they get stereotyped because maybe they overreact to the bias without explaining that that was a racist statement or whatever. When in 2020, when I joined the task force, it was a volunteer process to help write ordinances for what is now the Community Police Oversight Board. We talked about those intensive encounters and how the police department was clueless on what it was that we were talking about. And I remember letters coming in, some, not a lot, because a lot of people did understand the bias and they saw it on film over and over and over again, not just in La Mesa, which is my city, but across the nation and back. And you've seen, I know you've seen misunderstandings of how you treat, in particular, African Americans compared to other people. And I remember one lady writing in saying, oh, you know, we love our police department. I've lived here for 40 years and nothing's ever happened to me. They've been just wonderful. And my question was, well, are you white? because of course you haven't experienced nothing but wonderful experiences. And so I say all of that because there's a lot of stories that I could talk about. Is if you're going to train someone about biases and all that go along with it, they need to be a person of color, at least one in the training. And if you don't have that, I just want to suggest that you do. I have no idea if you do or not, but there's people that understand the 1,000 cuts a day, okay? And they're not normal statements that people make to other people, but they feel entitled to say it to people like myself. And you wouldn't maybe even notice, but a person of color does. And I feel very passionate about it. You know, when we were writing the ordinances, we went all the way to the line. And at first with the police department, they were angry with us. Our union was angry with us. But we leaned in and we asked them to help us help you. And we started to get and see changes. And I don't know if you know anything about La Mesa's history and the riots that happened in 2020, but that's when our police department started to realize we have a problem. We have a problem, and our community is not tolerating it, white people included. They didn't want to see anything like that. And we made those changes, and the police department adapted to understanding that they needed to have people, and police officers needed to be trained to have more empathy and understand how to communicate with people and to not communicate differently than they do anyone else. And so I just want to share that with you. It's something that I really care about. And I just think if you're going to have a bias training, that it include people of color, because otherwise you don't really, you can talk about the surfaces, you can't really get into the weeds if you haven't had someone that has experienced that over and over. And to this day, I receive the little cuts. And so it never goes away. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to white people, if you will, but it's nothing compared to people of color, nothing. So I just want to share that and make sure that you at least make sure that you have people involved with empathy and a straight understanding of really what bias training should be about. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chair.
Thank you so much for those comments. Really do appreciate the presentation. Dan, did you want to say something briefly?
I could not agree with you more. And it's important for us to sit up here in front of you with humility and understand we do have that responsibility. And I completely echo everything that you are saying. Again, and that's the reason why we didn't just train it once. We didn't just train it twice. We're tripling down because it's such an important thing. And you talked a little bit about there's deliberate discrimination, deliberate racism. Then you have the unconscious that people don't even know what they're doing. And they don't even know that they're treating people differently. They don't even know that they're contacting people differently. And it's our responsibility with all these new individuals coming into our organization to be able to train them train it again, so that when they encounter that situation, it doesn't happen. We know that it's not tolerated. We have, as far as instructors, we have the benefit of my operations manager being a professor at Point Loma Nazarene, at Grossmont College, and to be able to has taught these things in the past. And it's absolutely an opportunity for us, but it's also important that when we go out in the field, it is not enforcement only. We exercise and embrace cultural humility. Humility is more important than anything else, and be able to adapt to different cultures, adapt to people's perceptions, and understand that discrimination is absolutely impactful to an entire community. It can have a long time hardwired impact on an individual. And we will, I can assure you, over the next year, we will reinforce that with our folks. I'm not saying we don't have development to do, but with this massive growth, that's the effort that we have moving forward.
But I think, Dan, you're missing the point that the board member Dillard is trying to make, and that is that somebody who has lived experience of
Yes.
this needs to be involved in the training, and enough said.
Yes.
I said enough said.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We will ensure that that happens.
Okay, thank you so much. If there are no other comments, appreciate the presentation. Member Hall, yes, please.
This is actually for the next one, but can you kind of relate when you're talking these figures on the crime and robberies
Yeah.
and the assaults is what I'm concerned about, because
Member
see that
Hall, if we could, if you don't mind, and then just have them go through that presentation, I'll go to you first, right after. Okay, so you have a forecast of what you'll be asked. And then we have 1 hour left. So if we could, these last two presentations, I want to try to get through them. So if we could kind of pare those down to about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes for those presentations, that would be awesome. So let's go on to item number 5, annual security report, where Joshua Ortiz is presenting this for us, and please proceed when you are ready. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshua Ortiz. I'm the Operational and Crime Data Analyst. This morning, I will be presenting the 2024 crime stats for you as well. With this past year and our department expansion, one of the main focus was having data-driven proactivity on how crime is occurring on our system and how we can impact that to stop the crime as much as possible. Doing that, we actually changed how we reported crime. Before it was under a uniform crime report, we actually switched over to the National Incident-Based Reporting System. Other agencies in the county, including Sandag, have done this, and we felt that it was important to be on the same level as we are, or as they are. Again, initially, crime might look as though it's risen in certain areas. It's again because of how NIBRS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System, groups these crimes together. Before, as an example, assault was either aggravated assault or a simple assault. Now with this new umbrella of crime, it includes domestic violence, brandishing a weapon, criminal threats. So again, as it looks as they've raised, it's a larger umbrella that we're looking at and focusing on. One area I would like to also state is, as Deputy Director Brislin said, some agencies are taxed with personnel not being able to respond, lack of information. Maybe victims don't want to come forward to law enforcement. We, as MTS and as the Transit Security Passenger Safety Department, we're advocates for everyone on our system, whether it's patrons, whether it's employees or contractors. If they come to us and they report it to us, we're going to make sure it's documented. Again, this we might forward it in certain cases to the city attorney, to local law enforcement for further investigation. But again, we are the advocates for everyone on our system. With that, I'll move forward into the 2024 crime stats. Yep. Excuse me. There you go. Give you a moment to look at those. As you can see, robberies went up, assaults went up, larceny and theft, motor vehicle theft, drug violations, vandalism went down significantly. Sex offenses unfortunately did go up. Again, as Deputy Director Brislin said, some of these incidents and crimes we just are unable to handle. This requires law enforcement intervention in certain crimes. You can see with drug violations, a significant increase. Again, with the new umbrella, that also includes drug overdoses. It's not just strictly possession or use. It encompasses a lot more to that as well. Sex offenses as well. Before, it would have just been maybe sexual battery. Now it includes lewd acts, indecent exposures, things of that nature. Moving forward to Group B crimes. These are the ones that are still a public nuisance, but they're not as serious as the other crimes listed. Again, you can see disorderly conduct went up. That can be a multitude of things. That could be smoking, profanity on the bus or on the trolley, playing loud music. It takes in a whole compass of what just an unpleasant ridership would have for our riders and our patrons, and that's not something that we want to have. For buses, you can see we actually went down in some key areas and stayed consistent overall from the year before. And again, I have to preference this with this year's reporting is a lot different from previous years. So we're gonna need a couple more years to take a look at the true impact that we're doing now with this new reporting, and then with our department expansion as well. Group B crimes for buses, drunkenness, disorderly conduct. They rose a little bit more. I think the big difference with buses is that there's always an MTS employee on the bus at all times, obviously the bus operator. So they're going to see an MTS employee versus the trolley, which has 3 LRVs. That train operator is not always in those 3 LRVs. So they're not going to be able to get those crimes reported to them as well as a bus would. Assaults. 2024, we had 553 total assaults. Out of those 553, 173 were against MTS employees, roughly just a little over 30%. In the previous year, again, it has gone up, but again, we're following under NIBRS. It's a lot more under the umbrella. Non-compliant arrests. You could see with the code compliance inspectors, these went up drastically from the year prior. A non-compliant arrest, again, it might not just be what most people would consider an actual arrest where people are getting handcuffed, they're getting taken to jail. This can also include a detainment for a citation, right? They're taking their time, they're issuing the citation, they're gathering the information. It could be that a rider refused to present their fare when asked during a fare inspection. They could provide false information to the inspector. They might not provide any information to the inspector. Those are still following under a non-compliance. They can even refuse to sign the citation, even if they've given the information, they've gone along talking to the inspector, but then at the end of the time, at the time when it's to issue the citation, they don't want to do it. That's still considered a non-compliance. And then in more serious instances, it could be displaying assaultive behavior towards the inspector, including up to and assaulting them, and having to be taken into custody. Under fare inspections and citations, again, with our huge department expansion and taking some of those senior inspectors out of the field or into the field as training officers, it takes more time with the newer inspectors. They're reviewing multiple things, like Deputy Director Brislin said. They're making sure that the inspectors are getting what's being taught. But with that, citations went up. It goes hand in hand. Citations can take anywhere from 5 minutes. It can take up to 30 minutes, depending on what is going on during that contact. So that's where you can see a little bit of the balance in between the two, between the fare inspections and the citations. The top 3 violations were obviously fare evasion. That was a big one. Failure to comply and smoking. Again, smoking being one of those Group B crimes, disorderly conduct, fare evasion going up, and then failure to comply as well. Narcan. You could see in the past years, starting in 2021, going to 2023, we had significant increases each year. This past year, it actually decreased. I believe that is because of the readily availability of Narcan to the general public. Our inspectors knowing what's going on with a person that might be having an overdose or is about to have an overdose, they can render that medical aid or call for medical aid sooner, where Narcan doesn't have to be deployed. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much for that. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, let's go over to Member Hall.
My questions is real simple. The assault part. I've had a real problem with this is that I see on that the MTS person that was assaulted doesn't want to press charges. And I just have a feeling that if, I don't care if they want to or not, we as a corporation, we need to actually press those charges if we detain the people.
I think Karen can talk to that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's certainly an initiative that we've been working on kind of in combination with, our LUDAC pilot. One of the things that was within that was it started with just individual passengers or employees not wanting to press charges, either because they didn't feel safe or they didn't want to take on that burden. And so we had discussions with the city attorney's office of, do I need a state law that says MTS can be the victim? And that prompted all these conversations with the city attorney's office that they don't think I need a change in law, that they can still press it. They still need witness statements and evidence. And so what we've been working on is kind of a combination. One of the things that Gary is really helpful is he's that direct liaison with the person, whether it's the employee or a passenger, to show them our support and that we want to kind of carry the administrative burden and kind of some of the policy burden. And we would like them to prosecute and participate. And then we're putting together those evidentiary packets to go to the city attorney's office that they can independently call the victim as a witness, but still prosecute the crime. So we're working through that, and we're, learning what level of evidence do they need for them to be able to prosecute it. But it's definitely a big priority, and we're trying whenever we can. So it's slightly different veins of if you're working with a passenger or with an employee, but it is a big effort, and we just want the agency to bear the burden as much as possible so that the person just needs to go and testify and say what happened to them.
And I apologize for taking so long. I just repeat offenders. I just really, we've talked a little bit about this, and I just, time to kick them off.
We are, and we were thinking at a potential future meeting, maybe we'd give you a presentation on our exclusion policy, but we do have a detailed exclusion policy that we think balances that due process rights for people that need transit, but then also protects our passengers and our employees. It's really, if you are a repeated offender for safety violations, then we are telling people you're not allowed to ride anymore and giving them exclusion orders, which then does give us the right to write them a citation for trespassing if they come back on. And it has so far been very effective. We're trying to be measured, and we don't give them out like candy, so there's very few that are out there. But when we identify of this person as a repeat offender and we've got the evidence that shows that they did it, then we, Samantha Leslie, my deputy general counsel, works closely with the security department to review and draft the exclusion order. And then our guys are great at going out there and finding these people and being able to serve them with it. And so we do that. And especially if we know the prosecution takes a long time, we want them off our system as soon as possible, while we then try to work with the criminal justice process to have some consequences.
And again, the assaults and the lewd acts to me are good reason.
Yeah.
No tolerance.
Yeah.
Don't need to apologize. You are good. Thank you, first of all, for answering the questions that were sent by my staff members. I won't go into all of those. I just would like, if possible, if it's not already in the backup, just that definition of the expansion of the crimes that you have to report under assault and under all the different categories, and then kind of a comparison within those categories to what the type of crime that was committed or is in our books from 2023.
So we can give you an extensive explanation of
Okay.
that.
Okay.
We'll forward it after the meeting.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Any further questions? All righty. All right, thank you for the presentation, and we'll gonna turn it back over to Tim for item number 6, and this is our APTA recommendation review. We had APTA come in when we were kind of trying to make some of the changes to the line, and we wanted to go back and review that and see what has been done, what's feasible, what's not, where we are. So thank you, Tim.
And I think I could just, for anybody who's not been involved with this process, APTA is our North American Public Transportation Association, and they do these peer reviews on behalf of agencies. You bring them in, you pay them to come in, travel to us, and really do a deep dive on different issues. This was one that was really important for us because we were trying to reinvent how we were doing enforcement on the system, how we were doing safety on the system. And so that's what Tim's going to talk about and move quickly through these slides.
Good morning. Yes, I will get you out of here on time. I know we have a hard stop. My name is Tim Kern, as I said, and I'm the Director of Transit Security and Passenger Safety. In October of 2020, the American Public Transportation Association, or APTA, was asked to come to MTS and conduct a peer review of the Transit Security and Passenger Safety Department. The team selected by APTA observed the department and interviewed MTS leadership and department personnel over 4 days. The APTA review committee consists of transit security directors from around the country. Among the numerous APTA recommendations, some are still being researched and valued by the MTS legal department, and these include the administrative citation program, an internal database collection system, and also modifying the diversion program. Upon conclusion of the APTA review, the APTA committee made up numerous recommendations, and it basically fell into 15 areas, which I'm going to go through now and explain what actions, if any, were taken to adopt the recommendations. The panel suggested we consider enhancing our ability to collect and analyze crime and incident data on our buses and trains, as well as MTS properties. So in October 22, excuse me, we created a crime and data analyst position. This position tracks crime and incident data on buses, trains, and MTS properties. Our analyst, Josh, uses this data to assist our field ops managers to better deploy what limited resources we have. The data is also used to determine if those incidents involved MTS personnel. The panel also suggested we create liaison positions with local law enforcement. This would assist us, they thought, in gaining additional non-public crime and incident information. As Dan went into, and Josh did as well, we have numerous members of our staff who act as liaisons and have professional relationships with every local, state, and federal agency in San Diego County. Additionally, as you heard previously from Dan, we've created a code compliance investigator position. One of the investigator's primary functions is to interact with local law enforcement on a daily basis. The panel suggests a security contract allow for flexibility in staffing for unknown or unscheduled events and incidents. They further suggested closely examining the vacancy rate and developing retention strategies and developing a new RFP, or request for proposals, for a new security contract company. On January 1st, 2022, after a lengthy RFP process, Intercon Security Services was selected for the security contract for MTS. They took over from the previous contract, Allied Universal. Intercon has performed very well so far, and it's maintained a daily staffing hovering around 98%. The panel suggested more contract security, commonly referred to as our transit security officers, or TSOs, onboarding and more interface with code compliance inspectors, known as CCIs, in transit functions rather than just focusing on enforcement. Our TSOs go through 5 weeks of training, and the CCIs go through 7 weeks. We will routinely partner the CCIs and TSOs together during their shift. The CCIs really emphasize the benefits of educating our patrons rather than just focusing on enforcement. Additionally, both CCIs and the TSOs attend shift briefings together, making them all aware of the same incidents that may have been occurring, or areas of concern or special events that they probably need to know about. Next, the panel suggested piloting a deployment strategy of 2 CCIs working together for fair enforcement activities, and TSOs being stationed at high visibility locations. We actually do this for the most part. CCIs are generally paired up for their shifts. With the increase in staffing, we will occasionally pair up a CCI and TSO just to increase our visibility and checks on the system as well as continuing to maintain a close working partnership between the CCIs and the TSOs. The panel suggests we conduct a 100% fair inspection to ensure all passengers are contacted and provide proof of payment. This is the goal for our CCIs, to conduct a 100% fair check whenever they step onto a train or to a platform. Now, occasionally we will not complete a 100% check when checking a train or on the platform due to an incident, such as offering assistance to a patron, contacting a fare evader, or some other action that keeps us from proceeding with the complete check of every passenger in the car. The panel also suggested that CCIs giving warnings and allowing patrons to purchase a fare may have an adverse effect on those who pay. And this comes back to the origination of the diversion program. When the diversion program first went into effect in September of 2020, the MTS board direction was to allow riders found to be without a fare an opportunity to step off and purchase a fare rather than be issued a citation. This action did appear to increase the number of riders who elected not to purchase a fare unless checked by a CCI, and we did see an increase in the number of complaints from patrons who regularly did purchase their fares. Now, on February 1st, and we talked about this a little while ago, the diversion program was modified at the direction of this same board to no longer be required to offer the opportunity to purchase a fare to riders found to be without one in lieu of receiving a citation. However, our CCIs still have that discretion to verbally warn riders without proper fare and rather educate the rider on the importance of purchasing a fare. And this might be a tourist or somebody who's just unfamiliar with the system, and give them that opportunity. The panel suggested that fare zone markings be evaluated for enhancement to ensure that all riders are aware of the need to pay the fare, the consequences of non-payment, and the locations of fare paid zones. All of the LRVs have been decaled, and that means stickers throughout the interior of the car indicating the requirement to purchase a fare before boarding. The MTS marketing team has done a great job informing the public about the need to purchase a fare, and as far as fare paid zones are concerned, the MTS facilities division is constantly refreshing and adding media with painted surfaces and signs indicating where the fare paid zones are located and that a paid fare is required. The panel suggested that MTS re-examine the design of the diversion program as they believe the outcomes may not meet the intended goals. When APTA conducted the review, they found that many patrons would simply request a citation versus paying for a fare, knowing that they were not going to pay the citation and would still be allowed to ride to their destination. As we mentioned before, we continued to educate our riders on paying fares. As was mentioned, the early practice of diversion program mandated the rider found without a fare be provided an opportunity to purchase one rather than get a citation. And again, since February 1st, that requirement's been removed and we have experienced a lower rate. Again, the legal department, our MTS legal department is continuously evaluating the structure of the diversion program. The panel suggested the use of technology solution for fare enforcement, including electronic citations and records management system. This technology could also permit CCIs to determine an individual is a frequent fare evader. But right now, the San Diego Superior Court does not accept electronic citations. As for our records management system, any issued citations are entered into a regional records management system. That current system is not accessible by our CCIs in the field. It's just accessible by records personnel and our managers. The panel suggests that CCIs and TSOs conduct joint training to promote more teamwork, respect, and morale to ensure that the groups continue to successfully work together. The CCIs and TSOs have trained together numerous times and continue to do so. Some of those joint trainings include de-escalation, symptoms of overdose, implicit bias, and mental illness, just to mention a few. The panel suggested many topics for in-service types of training, including enhanced customer service, mental health, first aid, cultural competency, unconscious bias, ADA issues, and OSHA and bloodborne pathogen training. The CCIs continue to receive update or in-service training on unconscious bias, de-escalation through the San Diego District Attorney's Office. And the San Diego City Attorney's Office has provided training on lewd acts and indecent exposure violations. We provide our own trainers and outside trainers for CPR, first aid, bloodborne pathogens, and ensure that our personnel continuously receive the training on a biannual basis. The panel suggested that the current right-of-way training be refreshed in partnership with the safety department, and that CCIs partner with Operation Lifesaver for the safety awareness campaigns it provides to discourage trespassing on trolley tracks. All CCIs and TSOs receive ROW or right-of-way training before they ever work in the field. This training is then provided and required on a biannual basis. We also participate in Operation Lifesaver program, and we have a team specially trained of CCIs and CCI supervisor who conduct that training to schools and other community groups. The panel suggested the department have a policy procedure that provides the mechanism for a formal open door policy encouraging openness and transparency with all employees. All of the MTS leadership continually encourage an open door policy. The entire management team and myself in the Transit Security and Passenger Safety Department meet with every new employee and explain our mission statement, vision for our department, and our core values. We strongly encourage them to come to us with new ideas and any questions or concerns. The panel suggested we enhance our information sharing capabilities, and I think we're actually pretty good at this. The information is shared with CCIs, TSOs, and all of our employees via our digital bulletin board known as a Chrome box in our bullpen area, and that's our common area in our offices. We also share information through bulletins via email, and numerous members of the department management team, myself included, attend daily shift briefings to listen to and disseminate information. And we have 3 major lineups a day at 5 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the afternoon. The panel suggested that the standard operating procedures manual be reviewed and edited based on the current processes and procedures in place. Our SOPs or standard operating procedures are constantly being reviewed and updated for any changes to MTS policy or legal guidelines. When an SOP is updated, the update is reviewed by the administration, MTS legal department if necessary, as well as the human resources department, again, if necessary. At the start of 2025, the entire SOP was reviewed and updated, and all changes will be completed before the end of this month. The panel made several suggestions regarding the video retention policies and procedures. These include a chain of custody and security sensitive information policy and program and dissemination. They recommended that video requests from private attorneys go through the MTS legal department. Any access to CCTV and videos be outlined in policies, and that audits be performed to ensure compliance. A policy for who can view and share videos, and to conduct an inventory of the servers and to ensure the servers are adequately secured. Well, we now have a written policy for video retention. The policy is reviewed annually for any needed changes. The video retention periods are varied based upon legal requirements, state of California requirements, and or any federal legal requirements. California law governs MTS disclosure obligation for most video, which we follow. MTS has a chain of command form for all video evidence released to courts or law enforcement as requested. Any video that comes from the public defender's office or a private attorney is reviewed and authorized by the MTS legal department. And a request for CCTV access and videos is reviewed by several department leaders such as legal, human resources, and IT to ensure compliance. A department-specific policy was created to describe specifically how department personnel can view and share video. And finally, the MTS IT department monitors all servers. Our CCIs and TSOs conduct regular security checks of the communication boxes where the servers are located throughout the system to ensure security. The panel noted that homelessness is having an increasing impact on MTS services, riders' perception of safety, and the overall customer service. The panel suggested we consider some public-private partnerships to assist with any impacts that the homeless population is having, both real and perceived, on the system. In 2021, MTS created our homeless outreach team, and as Dan mentioned earlier, has 2 CCIs and 2 CSOs, and it's managed by one of our CCI supervisors. Since its inception, the HOT team has partnered with multiple public and private organizations throughout the county to assist the homeless community in obtaining services such as mental health, physical health, shelter, family reunification, veterans assistance, and many others. The panel further suggested that we consider partnering or engaging a social worker or clinician to evaluate any training developed and the effectiveness of any programs created to address homelessness, mental health, and addiction challenges. The MTS hot teams engage daily with San Diego County social workers as well as other public and private organizations to address these important concerns. Our hot team members have attended several training programs to include the 40-hour Regional Psychiatric Emergency Response Team, or PERT training. The panel suggests that we consider dedicating a team member to coordinate the efforts to clean up bus shelters and other facilities and to partner with social services agencies and other public and private stakeholders to address homelessness, mental health, addiction, and other quality of life issues. Along with the hot team, we created 6 bus teams, each consisting of a CCI and TSO. Their primary function is to focus on bus stops throughout the county, as well as address issues on the buses as they travel their routes. The bus teams are also very proficient at addressing homelessness issues and work hand in hand with the hot team. The bus teams are out in the system during all revenue hours, 7 days a week. We also have a CCI and TSO who focus on camps that are found or reported on MTS properties. This team addresses unsheltered persons who may have created a camp on MTS properties, primarily along the right-of-ways, that means near the tracks. The individuals in these areas are at risk of being struck by trolleys or of delaying services due to the locations of their camps. Our camp team works closely with several local government agencies such as the police, park rangers, and CHP, just to mention a few. Additionally, they work closely with community groups such as the San Diego River Park Foundation to coordinate and assist with area cleanups. Our camp team works closely with the hot team and is very good at providing available service to the people they come in contact with. The panel suggested that MTS consider the use of general employees to enhance safety and security to reduce criminal activity, particularly violent crime occurring within the transit system. MTS has an excellent passenger support representative program and a superb facilities team. During their new employee orientation, these new employees are educated about facility security and how we are all responsible for reporting any suspicious incidents or dangerous situations. They are instructed as to how to report incidents to our dispatch center or to a supervisor as soon as possible. The panel suggested that MTS can consider converting our CCIs to a dedicated law enforcement department. The panel believed that because of the CCI's training, professionalism, knowledge of the system, and customer service skills, they should be law enforcement officers. So to create a law enforcement department would require MTS board action, at minimum, legislative change as well. We currently rely on the local law enforcement agency for which jurisdiction we might be in for our police services. We go through 7 local law enforcement jurisdiction in our system. But at the same time, we also have great communication relationships with all of those departments, as well as CHP and federal agencies in the county that we come in contact with. So that is the end of my APTA report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Tim, for that report. Just want to make sure there are no public comments before we go to,
We do not.
okay, to the members. I don't see any members wanting to speak right now, but I do have a request. One is if I would like to attend one of the unconscious bias trainings that the district attorney does. I would like to see the curriculum for that. So.
Like to hear more about it?
Yeah, I would actually like to attend it. Yes. So if they're regularly scheduled, I'd just like to get it on my calendar.
I will get you those dates. Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. The other thing that we kind of did a little bit of intro comments about, this review and how important it is that we kind of go back to it. Maybe at some point we'll, get it updated, but it is good to see that internally you all have been using it and not allowing it to get dusty on a shelf. That is really good. So thank you for that. Had a question about the APTA recommendation on homelessness outreach, and I'm wondering if we have considered the idea of contracting with service providers and done any kind of cost analysis with this. Back about 5-6 years ago, PATH, I think, came to this committee, and we've kind of floated the ideas around. I just want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so we felt it was important to have personnel on our staff who were doing this outreach. We just felt like it's a unique environment and it's important to have that connectivity between those personnel and our riders who are experiencing homelessness. There was several years back that one of our people who were doing this homeless outreach for us actually was told that we could partner with their organization. I think it was the rescue mission.
That's correct, it's a rescue mission.
Yeah, but that's kind of a stale offer several years back. Same thing with PATH. They did, as you mentioned, come to this committee and gave a presentation. I believe it was somewhere in the nature of $1 million for a year's contract was what we were being quoted at the time. We, as transit agencies, aren't eligible for homeless assistance dollars that either from the state or the federal government. We are trying actively to get that changed. We would like to see if we as a transit agency could, and we're working with the California Transit Association to try to get that action at the state level. That having been said, because we have dedicated personnel who people have gotten to know, we have made excellent partnerships with a lot of the organizations who are already out there in the environment, and we welcome them to come to our events. And Chair, you attended one of those events, I believe.
I've organized two that you all
You've
have been
organized. Okay, you organized them. And that these are instances where I think having the dedicated personnel on our internal staff have really served us well, because they have built those kind of relationships. We are very much involved with Downtown Partnership, Clean and Safe, regular meetings with them. I sit in on regular meetings with them to talk about how we can help those in the downtown San Diego area. These are just examples of what we've been doing. If we were to contract with an external contractor who does this type of outreach, we would have to go through our normal procurement process,
Right.
which is, competitive bid and things like that. So if the board and this committee wanted to recommend to the board that we do that, that would certainly be something that we could assess what the scope would look like, et cetera. But currently we don't have dedicated funding for that type of thing.
Okay, before I respond and react to that, let me go to Member Fernandez. I know you also have a hard stop.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank staff for 3 amazing and detailed reports. I can't imagine all of the data that you're looking at while making these slide decks for us. Given Chair Montgomery Stepp's request to attend one of your trainings, I also had a question about your data-driven efforts in your monthly meeting, but maybe if appropriate, I would like the board to be invited to just join one of these meetings for just a short amount of time, like not sit there the whole time with y'all, but I am always curious in how large public agencies, what data they take in, how they process that data to improve what they do. And so I'm just curious as to how y'all do that as well. So again, maybe that's getting too deep into the sausage as far as interacting with staff. If it is an appropriate request, I would like the board to be invited.
Yeah, and are you referring to the meetings when they meet with the field personnel and give them kind of their explanation about SOPs, et cetera, or?
Correct. It was in the first presentation. We were talking about data-driven efforts and there was a mention of a monthly meeting.
Oh, this is the one. Okay, I know
Sorry,
exactly which
Because
one.
we kind of rushed through
Yes.
all 3 of them, I
With the
understand we
data
don't-
analysts.
Yeah.
We can certainly provide that information and the dates and invite you to one. Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you. Just one more quick question, and then I'll go to Member Dillard. Does MTS have any access to the HMIS system, the homeless management data system that is housed with the Regional Task Force on Homelessness? Do you have any?
I don't believe we do.
Okay. okay.
No.
It's just, there's obviously an effort to coordinate. A lot of times the people folks that are on the line are in and out of the systems. And I am gonna be making more of an effort to make that system more comprehensive for our agencies. I think it'll cut down a lot of the work, particularly for the folks at MTS that are doing this and, you know, kind of doing all the coordination. So we'll circle back on that, and then I'll go to Member Dillard.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the recommendation of a possible RFP that you were talking about. If we need to make a motion, or you feel that this should be something that we should do, I like for that to also include some kind of educational process for people who are biased against homeless people, or feel a sense of entitlement, and that these people shouldn't be paid attention to, if you will, because of where they are. You know, they're pretty much, you know, down on their luck in a lot of cases, and have had unfortunate things happen to them. And people don't even understand that. They just somehow see them as a nuisance or an interference somehow or inconvenience of where they are. And I think that there should be some kind of education to the public to make people understand that these are real people and they don't deserve to be kicked when they're down, and they deserve to be helped in whatever need or capacity. And I would like to see that as well as a counter to just addressing homelessness.
Thank you for that. I think on our next agenda, let's kind of get more detail about what we are doing, and then make it a possible action of, you know, looking at a different way of collaboration if we feel like it's needed, right? Or, you know, of course, we're looking at our budget and all those things, but I do want to have the conversation and get a little bit more detailed about, you know, what we are currently doing. I think that's very helpful. I also would like on the next agenda for us to choose a vice chair. Okay. Anyone else? All right, I don't see anyone else on the vice chair,
Does
please.
it, and we'll take volunteers if anybody wants to.
You got to give me time to convince folks. If there is nothing else, really do appreciate the 3 presentations, a lot of context for all of us, but especially our newer members. So thank you for everything that you are doing. And you know, tell everyone we do appreciate the work. Please. So any committee members have specific communications or other business? Seeing and hearing none, our next meeting date is May 30th at 10 a.m. That's also a Friday. And I will adjourn this meeting at 11:38. Thank you, everyone.